So the session is going to be recorded. We always post them on our YouTube channel. We have, I think, over 18 videos now. Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the number of videos that we have. You can check them out at your leisure. There's a ton of good stuff on there. You can expect today's webinar to last about 45 minutes. It might be a little bit shorter since it's just us, just a small group. For communication, normally you'd have two options. Let's see here. Normally you'd have two options. You would be able to chat in the chat box as we're doing, or you'd be able to use your microphone. But since I can't hear you, we're going to settle on just using the chat box today. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay, well then we will try and get through it extra fast then. No problem. Okay, so any questions about how to communicate? We're good? All right. So normally this is where I would ask you to tell me a little bit about yourself, maybe what you're teaching. Are you already teaching online? Are you planning to teach online later? Oh, great. Oh, very cool. Well, synchronous sessions might be a really great tool for you to use then. Oh, absolutely. That's exciting. Well, I hope you find this useful then today. So our agenda, we're just going to talk a little bit about what synchronous sessions are. We're going to discuss the importance of having a plan, visual design and delivery tools, and what I call minding your atmosphere. So first I'd like to ask, what is a synchronous session? Now you've taught online before, so I'm sure you have an idea of what a synchronous session is. I probably don't have to tell you, right? Yeah, exactly. It's any activity that occurs with everyone participating at the same time in a real time or a live setting. We see this most often in terms of lectures. Oops, I apologize. I hit the wrong button there. We see this most often in terms of lectures, but there's a lot of other things that you can use synchronous sessions for. Can you think of anything else you might use a synchronous session for besides the standard lecture? Especially as a music teacher, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what music education, what you could use it for. Sure. It's a great form of like formative assessment, sort of checking in with your students. You could do presentations, have your students share their work. Oh, excellent. Yeah, we'll get to the whiteboard soon. That's fantastic. You can also use it, you can also use it for things like group work, collaboration, brainstorming. For you could use it for online office hours. Excuse me. You could use it for online office hours to talk with your students, or even just a Q&A session to check in with them. There's a lot of things that you can use it for. Of course, once once you've decided on an activity, there's the what now. There's that I want to use it, you want to use it for a whiteboard, but then how do I present it? How do I get it out there? So what I like to say is the most underutilized thing that creates great engagement is actually planning, which sounds super boring, but it's the truth, right? It's the truth, because you want to plan out your entire presentation, because things will go wrong, just like things went wrong at the beginning of this presentation, and you need to have that backup plan. You need to you just kind of need to have a sense of where you're going with things, how you're going to use things. But a lot of people really overlook that and they think, oh, I've got my PowerPoint slides and I'll just throw it up there and wing it, which is really not the best course of action. I always like to say, start out by thinking about your challenges. So one of the biggest challenges always, as we saw in the beginning here, was technical issues. And this is how I feel whenever technical issues happen at the beginning of a synchronous session. I just want to slam my head on the desk because I feel like it happens every time, and it's not, sometimes it's not me, sometimes it's the students, and it seems like no matter how many times you practice and try beforehand, when you go live, something happens. So it's good to have a contingency plan. Like in our case, we can use the chat box since I can't hear anyone. Luckily, you guys can hear me though, because otherwise we would really be struggling to have this presentation because I don't use text hardly ever in my slides. So some ideas for your tech support plan is really letting students know kind of what's going to be expected of them, what they're going to need beforehand. Ideally, they should have headphones, at a bare minimum, headphones, because otherwise they get feedback from the mic and it comes through the presentation when they use their microphone, and it's terrible. Ideally, they have a headset microphone. If you want them to have a webcam, you just want to make sure that they know that before they enter the session. Next thing is also to give them contact information. Let them know who they can talk to. For synchronous sessions here at Westchester, they are more than welcome to contact our department for support. We have extended support hours into the evening. Pretty much Sunday through Thursday, we're here till 8 o'clock in the evening. So that way, you know, if your students run into trouble, they have somebody to call. And so it's good to give them this information ahead of time. You can also give it to them in the presentation so that way they're not, I guess, eating up the presentation time for you. They can go out on their own and troubleshoot off to the side instead of killing the presentation. The other thing you can do is you can open up a test room for practice, which we really recommend doing. Is if you can ahead of time, especially if you're going to be using synchronous sessions a lot, maybe in the beginning of the semester, create a test room and just let your students know that they can drop in, test their equipment, maybe play with the tool a little bit, get used to it, get, you know, kind of how it feels, how it operates. Again, they might test everything and then they get into the session and, you know, their headphones don't work or something, but at least they'll have a better feel for it. It's not going to be a complete shock to them when they log in. Other thing you could do is open your session a little bit early, so that way if people want us to come in early to try and troubleshoot things or just to make sure they're settled in, is another great way just to make them feel at ease and ready to engage. Communication management, which is huge and a lot of times overlooked. We just think that, oh, well, we'll just communicate like we normally do. And in a situation like this where it's a small group, it's not so bad. But when you've got 25 students and they're all typing questions in the text box or activating their microphones or not activating their microphones, it can get crazy fast. So having a plan for communication is definitely something you want to put in place in the beginning. How do you want your students to contact you? How do you want them to interact with each other? And that might dictate how you run your session, or you might plan your communication based around your session or vice versa. So, but something that you want to keep in mind, and again, communicate early on in the presentation. So that's the housekeeping stuff that you want to make sure that, and just that's really just setting a stage for an engaging presentation. The next thing is the visuals, and I have my big eyeball here for visuals because when it comes to visuals, there's engagement techniques that are both design related and delivery related. I'm going to talk a little bit about some design features. If you're more interested in designing PowerPoints, I do also a webinar on creating PowerPoints for online learning and situations like this. So shameless plug for another webinar. So some engagement techniques for design include minimizing your text. I'm sorry, I'm going to pause. Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy. Online learning or learning. PowerPoint is really, when you're designing slides, you can use it for in-person or online. We say online because we typically deal with online and blended courses the most, but especially in situations where, with online learning, especially in situations like this, like with a webinar, you don't want your students to think that they know they're going to get the slides later and download them, so they kind of mentally check out of your presentation, because they don't really have to listen to it if they're super text heavy and everything's on there. If they can get through the presentation and understand it without you, then it's time to strip down the text. And that's my motto, because you want them to pay attention to what you're saying. You don't want them reading. Okay, good. So this is the photo icon. I'm sure you recognize it from pretty much every rich text editor ever. And I put this up here because one of the best things to use is, if you're not going to use text, if you're going to minimize your text, then you want to make sure that you use high quality and, most importantly, relevant images. You don't want to put images up just because they're pretty, but something that communicates an idea that you're trying to get across. There's a lot of websites out there where you can get some good quality free images. This I got from Pixabay, which is a really good website, which I can actually type in here if you're not familiar with it. Another place that I go a lot is iconfinder.com, and they have a lot of really great icons that you can use. So that's where I get the little chat icons and microphone icons and things like that. So, oh, thanks, Tom. And I'll include also at the end, once I post this up on the YouTube channel, I'll also include in the comments links to all of these resources, so that way you have them there to reference. Another thing that you want to, in terms of design, is your font. I say, if you're going to use text, make the font big. Because little font is hard to see, even on a computer screen. They say that a minimum best practice is 24 point, but as you can see, even 24 point is pretty small. And it does depend on the font. Different font styles look bigger at different sizes, so it is something that you have to play with. For this presentation, for this purpose, I used just a standard Calibri font, which is kind of like an Arial. It's very basic, very standard, but just to show the differences there in font sizes. So if you're going to use text, make it big text. Also, by making it big, it kind of forces you to only put what matters on the slide. So from an engaging design standpoint, as little text as you can to get your point across, and make it big. Oh, I just got something in my headphones. I heard somebody.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
It wasn't your fault. It was my fault. I didn't have my audio on. I didn't have my microphone connected at the top. Hello.
Hello. It's so good to hear you. Fantastic.
Okay. Yay.
Awesome.
All right. Tom can hear too. Yay. Okay.
All right. Well, we've got 7 minutes, so I'm gonna
Wonderful.
try and get us through to 11:30, so you can get to the university on time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, I'm happy you're here. I'm happy to have an audience.
Thank you.
Okay, so my next pro tip is contrast. So the best thing is, it sounds super boring, but the best thing is black text on a white background. But if you really hate that and really want some color, then at a minimum, you want to do dark text on a light background. Don't do light text on a dark background, unless it's for like maybe one slide, kind of like this, to prove a point. But if it's a whole slide deck like that, it can be really stressful on the eyes and turn people off. As far as delivery goes for content, we like to say keep it moving. So you don't want to linger on one slide for too long. Otherwise, I mean, it can even, I've actually had students think that their screens had frozen because the instructor just hung out on one slide for so long. They started thinking maybe there was a technical problem. and there wasn't. It just, that the instructor just decided to hang out, which isn't terrible when you are in a face-to-face classroom, but online it doesn't work as well. So as an instructor here, you have two options when it comes to synchronous sessions. You have Adobe Connect. That's what we're using right now. If you want to use Adobe Connect, if you're liking this environment, you just have to let us know and we can get a license for you. Otherwise, you have Blackboard Collaborate, which is already installed in D2L, ready to use. There are some differences from what I've heard from most faculty and students, they find that Adobe Connect is a little bit easier to use and the interface is a little bit cleaner. But if you want something to practice with right away, you can definitely jump into D2L and launch a room and collaborate and play with that a little bit. Excuse me. They both have tools like chat, polls, screen sharing, whiteboards, which I know you're excited to get to. We'll get to that right now. I'll even skip through a couple slides just to get there. But basically, it goes back to planning. Plan what tools you're going to use ahead of time, so that way you know. So you've got your chat tools. So you can chat in the chat box. Up in the very top of your screen, you have a little guy raising his hand. You could tell students, hey, don't just interrupt me, please raise your hand, and then I'll alert your mic.
I have a little microphone that I can turn on.
Yeah, you have a little microphone that you can turn off and on, yeah. And, oh, hi, Tom, thanks for raising your hand. Do you have a question? No? Okay. I'm going to decline your hand raise. But yeah, so you can do that. You can do like a little thumbs up or a thumbs down or speed up or slow down. Or actually, I'm sorry, thumbs up and thumbs down is in Collaborate. In here, we have speed up and slow down. But you can use those. You can use polls. So polls are super easy to create. I was going to do one if we had more people, but since it's just us, it would be kind of silly. There's screen sharing, which is really nice. You can let your students, I mean, we have something like this where you can upload a document, like some slides and like a slide deck, but you can also offer to share your screen, which is nice because then you can bring up websites and other things like that. You can ask students, you can give them screen sharing properties and they can maybe show images or websites that they use to contribute to the conversation. Another thing you can do is, the thing you've been waiting for is the whiteboard. So I'm going to turn, let's see, I'm going to turn the whiteboard on. Okay, and everybody should have just gotten, can everyone see the whiteboard? You have it on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So now you should be able to doodle and draw things and make text boxes if you want. You can yes, you can do. I mean, this is like Khan Academy style. You can do like 2 + 2 or however you want.
Now, is this on both Adobe Connect or Blackboard Collaborate?
I believe so. Tom, can you confirm? I believe there's whiteboard on both. Yeah.
Okay.
So check out the Blackboard whiteboard too, maybe see which one you prefer because you know what you need it for.
Sure.
But so yeah, you can do this, and like I said, you can share the whiteboard so you can have students put in their 2 cents, which is nice. Tom, I can hear you, but barely. I feel like I heard you, but not very loud. Okay, well I must have heard something else. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing, unless, Nancy, are you done playing with the whiteboard?
Oh, oh, I didn't know I could do things from my end.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Oh,
Give it a try. You should have some tools there on your left-hand side, like a selection tool and a marker and a T for text. Uh,
oh, I didn't realize that.
rectangles. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, so you should be able to do, yeah, all kinds of stuff. And this is
Oh, so
nice.
I was just thinking of using it as for demonstration purposes from my end to be able to say, write notes on as if I would write on a blackboard on a music staff or something, like that.
Yeah.
And then just to explain certain concepts of music theory to the students. I didn't realize it was interactive, that they
Yeah,
could
that would be
actually
amazing.
jump in there and put a note in themselves. I mean, I'd have to explore that you could even do that, but I would think you would be able to.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
cool.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, and that's yeah, that's what I was saying, thinking too, is if you wanted to demonstrate
Yeah.
things and then have students kind of chime in. Another
That's
thing that's
great.
nice in Adobe Connect is you can do breakout groups, so you could even give like a puzzle or a question out, break them out into groups, then bring them all back into the whiteboard and have them kind of show how they might solve the problem.
Oh, that's
So,
cool.
so that's another cool idea that you might be able to use depending on how big your class
Cool.
is. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing that.
That's very interesting.
And I got to bring my document back up. Okay. Okay, so this was going to be my slide for the breakout rooms and the groups. You can connect
Nice.
people. Yeah, which is really a nice feature. So my
Great.
last little bit here before you go is just about, like I was saying before, kind of minding your atmosphere.
Hmm.
Um, this is a classroom, and there's a lot of I'm sure you know, a lot of nonverbal communication happens in the classroom. There's, head nods and postures and facial expressions and a lot of stuff that you don't get in a virtual classroom. Again, this is nice because I can see you, but the more video feeds that come on, you're not going to be able to see everybody the way you would be able to see a classroom.
Hmm.
So when you move from here to here, there's some things you can do to connect with your students. One of those things is what you're doing now, share your camera. When they can see you and interact with you and hear you, it makes it a lot more like a real classroom, and it's much more engaging for the students than just sitting there watching
Yeah.
slides or whatever go through. Even hearing your voice is
Hmm.
not as great as seeing you.
Hmm.
Um, Another thing is to make them feel welcome. Little things, greeting them as they come into the room, as if you were seeing them in classroom, can make them feel like they're noticed and they're belonging. Kind of sets that stage for them getting ready to engage. They feel like they're part of a group, so that it can prime them to engage in the session. And then this is one last thing. This is my positive attitude lady, I call her, because whenever I search for something exciting, her picture comes up. And just really keeping a positive attitude goes a really long way to a session running
That's cute.
smoothly. So
Hmm.
if you run into problems like I did in the beginning, sometimes it's frustrating, but when that
Yeah.
comes through the session, it can kind of set a tone of negativity. So if you can try to keep it positive, even if things are, going south or going sideways,
Yep.
it can help with engagement,
I
absolutely.
agree.
Okay, so let's see where I'm at. Oh yeah, and practice. Practice your session before you give it, if you can. You might know your slides frontwards to backwards, but just practicing it to yourself is so useful.
Yeah, I would
So
definitely do that, especially with the whiteboard, just to kind of get the flow of that, how they could, especially with that interactive capability. I wasn't thinking about that. That's very cool.
yeah, I mean, you could even have a test run with that too, like that test session where people are testing their equipment. Just open the whiteboard too at that time and say, hey, get a feel for how this works because we're going to be using it.
Yeah, great.
So then really this is just my conclusion. So you're going to plan everything, you're going to have great visuals, you're going to utilize the tools and make them feel welcome, and that should get you a pretty engaging synchronous session.
Makes sense.
So
Thank you. That's
you're very welcome. Do you have
very
any
helpful.
questions? Because I know you've got to go. It's 11:34.
That's okay. No, I don't think so. I think that really helps. I've made some notes, and did you say this will be available now on YouTube or?
Yep. Once I close it out, we have to render it. It doesn't take too long, but we'll put it up on YouTube, and I can send you an email with the link
Okay, that would be great.
once
Thank
it's
you.
up, and I'll include some resources, some links to like the picture websites I talked about. I'll include that in the comments or in the description.
Thanks. That's very helpful. I appreciate
Good,
it.
good. You're very welcome. I'm really glad you came.
Me too.
I'm really glad that you were able to at least get
Yeah.
through it, even though I had to rush at the end there a little bit to get you out on time.
I appreciate your shortening it, and that's great. I did get a lot out of this. So, and
Good.
it was nice when I figured out about the microphone. I actually knew that, and just hello, I just forgot that I have to do that for my end. So,
And you know what's interesting though is that on my end, your microphone was showing as live. It
oh,
wasn't
really?
showing as
Oh, wow.
muted,
Okay.
which is
Well,
why I thought I just couldn't hear you.
yeah,
Because like Tom's microphone is muted and I can see that.
yeah.
But
Okay. Well,
yours looked live the whole time, so
good.
we figured it out halfway through, so that's good.
Right. Well, thanks, Amber. I appreciate it.
If you have any questions after the fact, please don't hesitate to call me, email me. I'll be happy to help.
Thank you very much.
You're very
Oh,
welcome.
Tom, I met him yesterday at the BYOL. I see his picture there on the phone. I
Oh,
don't know.
yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hi, Tom. Okay. I remember now. All right. Great. Cool. All right, guys. Have a great weekend.
You do the same. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
See ya.